History books told us that white women were delicate, fragile, innocent. But behind the locked doors of grand plantation homes, in secret rooms no one dared to enter, disturbing realities unfolded. These women carried nasty truths, dirty secrets, and unspeakable obsessions that turned black men into their darkest fixations. They smiled at church, they served tea in parlors, they played the part of virtuous wives. But when doors closed and silence fell, the mask slipped, and the filthiest lies of slavery came crawling out of the shadows. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The slow creak of a door opening, the whispers echoing through an empty hall, the muffled breath of someone trapped, powerless, forbidden to resist. History has tried to bury these sounds, but they remain, disturbing echoes of power abused, of humanity stripped away. What if the so-called guardians of morality were hiding the filthiest lies of all? The time was the 18th and 19th centuries, the heart of slavery in the American South and the Caribbean. Plantations rose as symbols of wealth, built on sugar, cotton, tobacco, and human lives. Mansions glittered on the outside, their halls filled with chandeliers, paintings, and polished wood. But behind the walls, beyond the parlors where guests were entertained, stood rooms no outsider would ever see. Small chambers, cellars, attics, secret spaces where the balance of power twisted into disturbing forms. Society painted white women as pure, virtuous, fragile creatures, guardians of the home, untouched by sin, powerless compared to their husbands. Yet within their private chambers, many mistresses wielded devastating control over enslaved men. They decided who cleaned the rooms, who carried the trays, who slept just down the hall. And in that proximity, secrecy became a weapon. Imagine being a young man, ripped from your homeland, enslaved by a system that called you property. You spent your days in obedience, serving in the kitchen, the stables, the master's house, and then at night, the person you served by day could become your tormentor by night, hidden from the world's eyes, shielded by society's silence. This is the filthy, hidden side of slavery most people never hear about. On paper, slavery was simple ownership, masters commanding, enslaved people obeying. But within the household, power shifted in disturbing ways. White men were masters in public, but women were private rulers of the home. Mistresses oversaw the daily labor of enslaved men who worked as cooks, butlers, drivers, and body servants. Every moment placed these men under their mistress's gaze, every mistake punished, every silence demanded. These men were stripped of their humanity, treated as labor, as property, as tools. Yet in the intimacy of domestic life, something darker grew. Mistresses knew their secrets were safe. A black man who spoke out risked humiliation, violence, or death. A whisper against a white woman could destroy him instantly. This silence gave women cover to act as they pleased, turning bedrooms, parlors, or hidden rooms into private stages for disturbing acts of control. And it was not only physical chains that held them, it was a psychological trap. Enslaved men were forced to obey even in situations where their very dignity was being dismantled. They could not refuse. They could not speak. Even their eyes, even their breath, even their posture could be taken as defiance, punished brutally. But the control of daily life was only the surface. Behind closed doors, darker acts thrived. Acts that history sanitized. Acts that still break the heart when spoken aloud. Behind lace curtains and locked doors, the filthy hidden world of the mistress thrived. Secret rooms became stages for unspeakable acts. Attics where the air was heavy and suffocating. Cellars where no light crept in. Narrow side chambers where silence was enforced like law. In these spaces, cruelty transformed into ritual. Some mistresses were obsessed with dominance, using whips, starvation, and confinement to remind enslaved men that they were nothing but property. For them, power was not enough. It had to be performed, enacted, and savored. Every order barked, every humiliation staged was another layer of their control. Others let jealousy consume them. If a master's gaze lingered too long on an enslaved woman, suspicion turned to fury. Innocent women were beaten, mutilated, or worked to death, not for what they had done, but for what mistresses imagined. Some mistresses accused enslaved men of insolence, of arrogance, of imagined intimacy with their husbands, knowing that such accusations could mean torture or execution. It was a deadly game of lies. There were also psychological traps, mistresses who mocked, degraded, or lured enslaved men into situations where refusal was impossible and survival depended on silence. Disturbing power dynamics meant that even the smallest act, fetching water, carrying linens, standing too close, could become charged with danger. Some mistresses carried unspeakable obsessions, forcing enslaved men into their private chambers. For the man, it was not desire, it was a prison of submission. For the mistress, it was a filthy thrill wrapped in lace. These secret rooms were theaters of humiliation. Men stripped not only of clothing, but of dignity, mocked, degraded, silenced. Women, worshipped in public as delicate and moral, transformed into tormentors in private. They lived double lives, saints to society, devils in the shadows, and the hypocrisy was suffocating. They walked among neighbors who called them symbols of virtue, while behind closed doors they crafted rituals of cruelty and obsession. The impact on victims was devastating. Black men lived in constant fear, knowing that refusal or resistance could mean death. Their bodies became battlegrounds for the filthy obsessions of women who claimed to be powerless. They were voiceless, their pain erased, their stories silenced. Imagine being forced to serve your mistress in the daylight, pouring her tea, carrying her parasol, while carrying the weight of the unspeakable torment she inflicted at night. The trauma was not just physical, it was psychological. Dignity stripped, humanity mocked. Enslaved women suffered as well. Some mistresses destroyed them out of jealousy, punishing them for crimes imagined in their own minds. Women whipped and scarred for nothing more than being noticed. Mothers tormented with threats of losing their children. Families shattered because a mistress's envy demanded blood. The cruelty was not an accident of the system. It was woven into it. What happens to a soul when even your smallest smile could be taken as a threat and punished as a crime? What happens when your very existence becomes a stage for someone else's dirty secrets? These are the disturbing realities slavery buried beneath polished history books. But filthy secrets cannot remain buried forever. Whispers survived. In the hush of night, enslaved communities shared stories of the mistress's wrath, preserving memories that could never be written in ledgers. Later, when freedom came, slave narratives exposed the cruelty of white mistresses. Harriet Jacobs described the torment of her master's jealous wife, who punished her with suspicion, humiliation, and rage. Diaries and letters, written by mistresses themselves, revealed jealous hatred, obsessive thoughts, and, at times, veiled confessions. Modern historians peel back the layers of silence. Genetic evidence uncovers hidden truths, that forced intimacy did not come only from masters, but from mistresses as well. DNA reveals lineages that never fit the official record. Every uncovered truth strips away the mask of innocence, history wrapped around white women of the South. Yet for centuries, society denied their role. White women were painted as victims of unfaithful husbands, fragile souls wronged by men. But the archives tell a dirtier story. These women were not passive bystanders. They were participants, enforcers, tormentors. Some were obsessed, and their cruelty left scars that still haunt generations. Today, communities confront the shocking revelations. Black descendants uncover painful ancestry tied to mistresses' secrets. Historians challenge the myths of white purity, and culture itself must reckon with an uncomfortable truth. Slavery's filth was not confined to men alone. Women, too, carried the torch of cruelty, and they carried it into secret rooms where silence smothered the screams. Why did they do it? Why did women shielded by society, praised as angels of virtue, crave such unspeakable power over enslaved men? Some argue it was jealous rage, mistresses taking vengeance on women who were victims of their husbands' predatory desires. Others see hunger for power. In a world where women were denied control in public, the plantation home became their empire of cruelty. Some point to repression, white women forbidden from exploring desire openly, turning to enslaved men as hidden outlets, their shame twisting into disturbing games of dominance. And others argue that the system itself, slavery, was a machine of psychological corruption, twisting every relationship into power, obsession, and cruelty. Were these women victims of patriarchy or villains in their own right? Both may be true, but what cannot be denied is the devastation they inflicted. Picture it now, a candle flickering in a forgotten plantation chamber. Shadows stretch across the walls. The room is empty, but the air feels heavy, haunted. Because in these spaces, unspeakable acts once thrived. The secret rooms of slavery were prisons of silence, where dirty secrets lived, where disturbing obsessions consumed the so-called ladies of culture. Their acts broke men's dignity, shattered lives, and scarred generations. History long painted them as delicate flowers, but the truth reveals a darker portrait. They were enforcers of cruelty. They were carriers of dirty secrets. They were obsessed with power, and they used silence as their weapon. The hidden rooms are no longer locked. The disturbing truths are exposed, and the lies of innocence will not survive the light. The filthy hidden world of white mistresses is not just a footnote. It is a wound in Black history, a reminder that cruelty wears many faces, even the face of a lady. The hidden rooms have been unlocked. The disturbing truths have been spoken, and the silence will never return again.